welcome to the Southern Report. Thank you so much for giving me the privilege of your time. I have safely parachuted in. I know that my next guest is just tidying up his parachute before I bring him on. Now, around the world, in so many different ways, we face some interesting developments within our own personal legal systems, whatever country we come from. So I'll just say this to you, is that within the UK, it is now that the idea has been put forward that we scrap a lot of the option of having jury trials, which is one's right as a citizen in the UK, but just reserve that for extreme cases, sadly, like murders and rapists. So this is what we're facing. Other people in other countries are facing other challenges. And I'm delighted to bring on my guest, JJ Humprey, from the great state of Oklahoma. And as JJ says, he stands more chance of finding Bigfoot than finding an honest judge. And let's find out why. JJ, lovely to see you. Another one. You're wearing that great hat again, my friend. How are you? And thank you so much.
How about yourself, Mark?
I'm good. And thank you so much for joining me. And I'm just going to put this graphic up again because this is what we're going to talk about. This is a good illustration. So this is a graphic, and you are on the left-hand side. They seem to have caught your hat, your beard, your glasses, you absolutely wonderfully. And this is in the Oklahoma Post. And the reason why you are very, very kindly joining me is because I want you to explain why you're in the Oklahoma Post, the questions that are asked in that article and the explanation that's going on. And there is always the best thing to do is to speak to the people themselves that are involved. So, JJ, tell me about that article, please.
Absolutely. The Oklahoma Post did a very, very good job of breaking that down, what's going on. They did a follow-up. I'll have to shoot that to you, Mark, that really even explained it in more detail, kind of broke it down what the issues are. But what happened was we started just kind of a campaign against all of the corruption and the problems that were going on in DHS across our state. We had one case in particular out of Payne County that resulted in us starting a Payne County grand jury. So here in Oklahoma, if you don't know where Payne County is, maybe some of y'all have heard of OSU College, Stillwater, the Cowboys. That's Payne County right there. And so we were in Payne County trying to get this grand jury, and we had politicians come in and trying to kill it. So they enter in even though they don't have a standing. So for your listeners, Mark, our founding fathers were pretty smart how they set up here in America. And so what they did, they set up ways that when our system, when our government doesn't act appropriately, that the government actually run by the people. And so we have a process to bring that back to the people and bring that court system back to the people. And again, if your court system runs afoul, whether you're Democrat or Republican, if we have trust in our court system, then guess what? We can go there and we can depend that we have a law and that it's going to represent everybody fairly. But when we lose trust of our court system, and when our court system becomes corrupt and run afoul, then we're in a deep, deep trouble here in Oklahoma, here in the United States. So again, what we did, we brought in this grand jury, but we had these politicians that we had named on the grand jury. We'd also named the Supreme Court justice on the grand jury. They all show up kind of in the same time period simultaneously. Next thing you know, the organizer of this grand jury guy working with me, he ends up getting arrested for trying to protect his kid. They said he's child stealing. They put $1 million bond on him. Kind of stopped it really stopped our grand jury. It kind of halted us where we couldn't get signatures. It scared people off. I mean, it really, really scared people. They didn't want to sign on. We had a senator who was part of the petitioner. He was one of the original petitioners. He come off of it. He called and, hey, I want off of this. Now, the judge has already opened the petition. So all we had to do is go out and get signatures. But all of a sudden, the judge is opening this up to let people off, let people in. The people who are coming in have no authority. They have no standing just because they're named. I mean, think about this. Can you call the DA up because somebody accuses you of a crime and say, I don't want my name on that. I don't want you to charge me with that. Well, guess what? Nobody can do that. So we named them on that grand jury. They'd already approved the grand jury. We were already going out to get signatures, and they started arresting the people trying to do it. They set $1 million bond. They start, and I believe, this is what I believe, and I have reason to believe it, but I believe that that senator was threatened. I believe that he got a phone call, and I believe he got off of that. And the judge let him off. He shouldn't have let him off because he had already signed on it. And then he let all these politicians in and ended up, they kicked out the grand jury because they said we didn't get the appropriate signatures. So again, the judge said that he certified that. We asked him on the record, how'd you certify that, Judge? The board never met and it has to be board certified. So when we leave there, I went and got on an email with the board chairman and said, hey, they're saying this judge said that y'all certified this. And did you ever meet? Did you ever review? Did you ever certify? He wrote me back and said, we never met. We never reviewed. We never certified. So again, they claimed they had these certified signatures. They lied, complete lie. And again, how did you certify all this when they never met? And so what we did, we ended up filing an appeal with the Supreme Court. Now, I just told you a while ago, the Supreme Court justice was named in this. And the reason we named these people is because we've been filing saying, hey, we have abused kids, and it's your duty to look at this. Now, there's an act here in Oklahoma called the Kelsey Briggs Act. Was kid that got massively abused, ended up being put in a freezer, dead. And we wrote a bunch of bills out of that, which basically part of that Kelsey Briggs is just saying that the courts can't sit around and schedule hearings 30 days, 90 days out when kids are being abused. You have a duty to act immediately. And again, that applies to law enforcement. That applies to DHS. Anybody involved in this process is my understanding. So I had filed on the grand jury to say, hey, while we're sitting here waiting around trying to get these signatures, this kid over here is being abused. I would like a hearing to determine, what we going to do with this kid. How do we protect this kid? Totally ignored us. We went to the Supreme Court, the Oklahoma Supreme Court, totally ignored us, wouldn't even respond, hadn't got hardly anything from them. But yet, here I come with this appeal last Monday. I go in and I file this appeal and I list out all of these things. Now, another thing that I've kind of left out, there was we named our group, and we're just a group. We're just a group of citizens. So we named this group Oklahomans for Children's Rights, okay? Now, it turns out there's another group named Oklahoma for Children's Rights, Inc., I think, or the Oklahoma for Children's Rights. Really, really close there, but not exactly close, not the exact same thing. That group is a listed 5013C, an organized group. An organized group can't file a grand jury petition. An organized group is required to have an attorney represent them. You as an individual can go in pro se. They hate that. They don't like that, and they don't treat you exactly right. But at the end of the day, you have that right to go in and do that. So last Monday, I go in and I file this grand jury petition and, to appeal it. So we're saying, hey, we'd like to appeal this. And we get an immediate, which is kind of shocking, that you can get an immediate. So I turn it in Monday and get a response on Monday, basically saying that we're not going to allow this to go on, and you've got basically till the 8th to respond, and you will respond with an attorney because you're a 5013C and you don't have the authority to do this because you're a 501(c)(3). Well, here's the funny part, Mark. Now, this is what, and I need everybody to kind of pay attention to this. So we had a hearing there in district court because this is what the politicians came in and said. Their lawyers come in and said, nope, they can't do this. This is wrong. We went and got a certified letter from the 501(c) saying we're not part of that. So we got all that certified. We bring it into the court. We had to have a hearing. We should have never had a hearing. They didn't have any standing, but we had to have a hearing. We had to show that we're not that same group. Well, guess what? The judge ruled on that and said, we're not the same group. We're not, so again, why is this judge, this Supreme Court judge, if he's got the file, and here's where he's at, he's only supposed to look, if my understanding, I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is he's not supposed to go out and talk to anybody on this. He's going to rule on just what's been in front of him. He's got the file. It was obvious that this was presented in the trial. It was obvious that the judge ruled it's wrong and that we won on that. And yet he's coming back and saying, nope, you're a 501(c), which shows he didn't look at the file. You know, if he had looked at the file, he'd know that's not true. Now, here's what's happened. I think that these attorneys for these politicians have went and gotten his ear, or he's talking to the politicians. He's talking to that group personally. He almost has to. I don't see any other way that it can't be, because if you look at the file, you can clearly see we won that. You can't argue it. Why would you even attempt to argue it? Why would you bring that up? And yet what you see is him bringing that up because what happened, they come in, they whisper in his ear, and then he makes that the issue. So again, that's going to, I feel like that shows what's happening. I feel like that's certainly something that should be investigated. It is wrong for all these judges to get together. The law says the judges and politicians can't collaborate together to kill a grand jury. That's exactly, if you go look at when they issued the warrant for the organizer, the Supreme Court justice shows up 2 or 3 days ahead of that, happens to just be in Payne County, just happens to be there. Next day, you know, these politicians show up and file in the case. Same day they file, they're arresting my friend and organizer. And here we are bringing these same issues up, even though they've already been dealt with. Now, the other part of that that's really, really big, I think, that I brought out, and we've responded back to them. We responded back on the things that, one, how did you know it? It certainly wasn't looking at the file, because if you looked at the file, you'd know that's not true. Two, hey, here, we're going to give you the certified copy to show you not true. Next is, Judge, you're named in the petition. You are named in the petition. So you're going to sit up here and rule on whether you're going to kick the petition out when you're named as a subject of that grand jury. You can't make this stuff up. And here is supposed to be the top guy in the state for our law enforcement. And I'm having to sit here and tell you this. I mean, that's ethics 101. You must have flunked that course bad if you don't already know that. So again, I like this Supreme Court judge. He's a nice guy. I don't have any problem. But here's what I have a problem with is that we're not talking about law. We're not talking about justice. We're not talking about the people getting, the system corrected. We're talking about a bunch of people who do political favors, who kick out anything, who make the court system run for the people they want to make it run. And they will cover up rape. They will cover up child molestation. They will cover up anything just to keep their little system operating and not making any of the higher ups mad or the agencies mad. And that's what this is all about.
Wow. So can we go back to your friend who, sadly, there's a huge bond. I think you said of $1 million. There's a huge bond there. Can you break that down what has actually happened to him, the threat
Sure.
with his children, and excuse.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. We had gotten a report of kids being waterboarded at a mental health institution over in another county,
Right.
Garfield, which is Enid. And so we'd gotten some pictures of kids that had been abused and they had black eyes. One had been stomped, you could see. But we also had a report that they'd
Have
been
they?
waterboarded.
Sorry to interrupt, JJ. The abuse, was this by other children within the home?
No, this was by employees. And so they're waterboarding him. And again, that's
Wow.
even more than a inhumane. I mean, this is acts that we declared in war of inhumane acts
Yep.
of war. And now that's what they're doing to kids over here in Oklahoma is what we got reported. So we had some more kids being sexually molested by the employees of a detention center. We got all that wrote up. We sent it to our AG, who did absolutely nothing. We sent it to the governor. We sent it to Speaker of the House, Pro Tem. All of them sent it to the agencies. They did absolutely nothing. I set up to have a hearing, but when I set this hearing up, I brought this guy in that we're talking about. So his name's Darrell Dougherty. I brought him in on his case because his kid, he has, abundance evidence. Just unbelievable evidence of how DHS fraudulently allowed his kid, put his kid into a very harmful situation, has kept his kid in that, has attacked him. The city has attacked him. The police have attacked him. Now, I do want to hold up for the police officers and the deputies. They have been really good, but the city and the leadership of those have been terrible. And so, again, he was one of the ones that we brought in. We had a hearing on all this. They were trying to prevent me from having a hearing when I was chairman, and I was chairman of corrections and criminal justice corrections. And so we had this hearing. They're trying to stop us from having a hearing. Now I don't think it's odd, or I do find it odd, that the director of DHS resigned the week that we were going to have this hearing. So that's pretty interesting little fact that you got. But we have this hearing and we show all the evidence that we have on these kids being waterboarded, beaten. We show all the evidence that we have on the kids being molested at the Tulsa Detention Center. By the way, the FBI came in and raided that, did confirm we were correct in that, and DHS, OJA, OCCY, all these state agencies knew it and allowed it to continue, even though we'd went down there, people went down there and told them that it was going on. If we've told them some more in Cleveland County, they've not done anything on that, and Kojak, which is their number one place that they house their most violent offenders, juvenile offenders, is out of control. They had a big riot down there last night or night before. So we turned all this in. We presented all this evidence at that hearing, and we were going to order an OSBI. We had the authority to order an OSBI investigation. Our House came in and stopped that. They come in and said, we don't think you have the authority. Magically, OSBI comes in and says, we don't think you have the authority. I'm like, what it says right there on your webpage on the front, when you pull up OSBI on their cover on their webpage, says one of the ways to initiate an investigation is the chairman of a committee with the majority of his committee. And we had that, and we even had more people come on and sign. We had legislators who weren't in our committee actually asked us, could we sign on too?
JJ, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Could you explain what the OSBI is? What
you bet. So that's the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation.
Right.
And so we were asking for them to come in and do this. And so Darrell's case was one of the ones that we presented. And he just did awesome job presenting the facts of, we had audio, we had documents, we had all of the things to prove his allegations. And so we ended up filing all this with the the Supreme Court, and we tried to get it. We first tried to get a grand jury because we wanted all these things were through the state agency that's located in Oklahoma City. So we went to Oklahoma City. Well, that judge to this date has never had a hearing. We got an appropriate petition. He will not hear it. He has not ruled on it. He would not take our evidence. We filed Kelsey Briggs' evidence. He wouldn't look at it. We, Judge, you have to look at it. You have to act. And he wouldn't. We go over to the Supreme Court and say, hey, you know, this dude, we filed what you call I always chop up my language, amicus brief. I think is what we call that, amicus brief. Anyways, we file that and say, hey, that Oklahoma City judge over here is not following the law. They did absolutely nothing. So we go down to Payne County and we file this grand jury, and then bam, here they all show up to stop us. And so we have this big, multi time that we go to court. We go to court several times where we're saying, hey, Judge, you can't just let anybody willy-nilly come into this petition. You've already approved the petition. Our job is to get the signatures. I'd filed in there and say, hey, you need to do something for this kid, because guess what? That's what Kelsey Briggs says. The law says you can't sit around waiting to get signatures 45 days while some kid is being abused for 45 days. And then it's going to take you another 45 days to set up an actual jury. And then you're going to have to go through. So you're talking 6-7 months. And we filed in and say, Judge, you can't wait 6 or 7 months while kids are being abused. You have a duty by the law to do something. And Mark, whether you've got a law like Kelsey Briggs, common sense would, you know what I'm saying? Decency, rightness ought to, you know, these are people who are over us. These are our top law people. My gosh, if you had to tell the Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice, hey, you can't rule on your own case. You got to recuse. You know what? That's sad that old JJ knows that and that he does it and he's going to do it. How much more basic can you get? But this is how blatant we see it. They are so blatant. They don't even try to take it to the back alley. They do it right there on Main Street and then accuse you of being a sorry person. You're just a troublemaker, grenade launcher, you know, whatever. I've had it all thrown at me, and they ain't seen nothing. I might have, no, it ain't going to be in the grenade. It's going to be that, like Trump said when he dropped that, what do they call that, Moab bomb. He called it the mother of all bombs. Well, here in Oklahoma, it ain't going to be Trump. It's going to be Hump. I'm going to drop a mother of all bombs right there in Payne County, and we're going to see if we can't get something done. One of the things, Mark, that has happened that has just really put this on a national scale is right after they do all this and kill this grand jury, we had a case that we'd been watching and we didn't know what would be the outcome on it. And so anyways, it's called the Butler case. And so this kid, about 17 years old, he ends up raping these two girls, and he strangles them and rapes them. And then he decides that he wants to film it. So he films it. So it's not like, you know, it's not, they got a massive evidence. They come in and they file on him for about 10 or 11 crimes, sex crimes, rape by instrumentation, strangulation. And again, the doctor come out. One of the girls had to be operated on, my understanding. The doctor come out and said she was about 30 seconds away from being dead. And so anyways, this kid gets adjudicated. So first of all, you got to know if the DA filed charges of all of those, every one of those crimes have elements that have to be met. So before you can file this crime, you have to make sure I can meet this criteria, this criteria, this criteria. So to file all of those crimes, you know that they had the evidence there existing, or should have the evidence to file those crimes. If the DA is doing what they're supposed to, they shouldn't file a frivolous crime. They should have the evidence of what they list. So then they went and adjudicated him, as my understanding, as an adult. Now, you don't just go in there and say, Judge, we want him to be treated like an adult. You have a hearing. They present why he shouldn't. You present why he should. Again, the things you're going to look at is the age, the heinous of the, you know, how heinous were the crimes? You know, was this a continual act? And all of these things that you'll factor in.
And he was 17 at the time, you said.
Right. So, I mean, he's not that far away from being an adult.
Yeah.
You look at the crimes were committed multiple times. You look at that he's strangulation. You look at 30 seconds away from death, pretty serious stuff. Strangulation's a big deal. So basically, he goes through the court system as an adult. They're going to take a plea. He's going to plead no contest, which is the same as guilty. They can argue that all day long. Same as guilty. He's going to get a something like 78-year sentence. Now, Mark, we can sit here and talk about a 17-year-old getting a 78-year sentence. You know, if you wanted to have a conversation, maybe we need to drop that down to 25 years, 10 in, 15 out. You know, he has to register. We can have those conversations all day long. I don't feel like those conversations are inappropriate. But what they did, they came in and assigned that to the judge, and she came in and said, no, we're going to try him we're going to sentence him under Youthful Offender Act, meaning that basically in 8 or 9 more months, he's going to get off. Now it's down to seven or 8. He's going to get off with absolutely no record, doesn't have to register, all of that. And they gave him 150 hours community service. Now, Mark, you know, when you drop from 78 years to 150 hours community service, you know what? That people are mad. People are rightfully very, very upset.
Absolutely.
So we had some national media come in. Now, here's what's kind of mind-boggling to me. Our own local news is not really reporting on this that much. I mean, we're not seeing a whole lot of coverage from our local news stations. You'd think all over the state this would be, when you've got a grand jury case that has your Supreme Court justice, when you've got multiple politicians, you know, the high-ranking politicians, in this, when you got judges in it, DAs in it, you would think that would be something that they would want to report on. When we're saying that a guy got arrested and put $1 million bond, the judge, I do $1 million bonds all the time. Quite funny, Judge, I ain't been able to find one of them. I've looked, and guess what? I've looked at probably over half of your bonds and ain't found one yet. Most of them about 35, not over 35. You had one. I'm not certain that was that judge, but I think it was, where an individual stabbed his mother in the neck, if I remember correctly, and he put a $50,000 bond on. You know, so again, why are you putting $1 million on this individual? That's unheard of. Why did you stay after hours to issue these warrants? Why did you bring a judge in from another county and he issued 2 when he had no standing at all? And the deal is, put the kid in to avoid having any problems, they took the kid to the youth shelter. And that youth shelter has a standing order from that court saying that any kid that comes in, turns herself in, and presents abuse, that they will stay there for a minimum of 72 hours, that they will investigate the abuse, you know, and they'll get some counseling. Okay. This kid goes down there. So my friend's kid, he gives him choice. You want to go home or do you want to go to the shelter? The kid picks the shelter. Now that ought to speak quite a few volumes. You know what I'm saying? So he goes down there, turns himself in, presents himself as a child that has abuse. He's already reported it to, I think, 4 police officers. That we've already been up there to court 1,500 times telling them, you're going to have a hearing. You're required to have a hearing. The law says you have to have a hearing before you can return this kid back to the home where the reported abuse is. Never had a hearing. The judge ignores the law, never has a hearing. They go down there and get that kid 5 hours after he's done checked in, ignores the court order, and they take him back and put him in the abusive home without any questions, without any kind of investigation, and mountains of evidence on this kid reporting abuse. To my understanding, the mother possibly, I'm not going to say possibly, my understanding, she has already admitted to the abuse. The DHS workers have admitted to the abuse, and yet we're putting that kid right back in. From the things I've seen, I want to be always careful because we like to say alleged and all this, but it's really past alleged. It's past that. It's to the point of it's warranted an investigation. We have enough to say, by damn, something's wrong here and you need to investigate this. But why are these judges hell bent on sending this kid back. Why would a judge that's been ordered to be disqualified? So he hadn't been ordered. So here's the deal. If you file a motion to disqualify a judge, they cannot come back into your case and rule on anything until that motion is ruled on. So if I say, Mark, I'm going to disqualify you, until somebody looks and says, no, Mark can do the case, or no, Mark can't, then you can't touch my case. This judge over in another county, Noble County, had a motion to disqualify. So when all this starts happening over in Payne County, he comes in and interjects himself. He's been the guy that's been doing most of this. He comes over and gets in this case. Well, guess what? It's not his county. It's not his case. He's got a motion to disqualify, so he can't touch it anyways. But even more, he's named in this grand jury. Should he be operating to get warrants on the guy doing the grand jury when he's named in the grand jury? I would think not. I would think that's all the problem. He comes over, issues warrants for this guy. The guy goes, turns himself in. The court clerk is not even going to accept the bond. The deputy that takes him in there, he turned himself in deputy. Deputy takes him up there. Court clerk's not going to accept the bond. Deputy has to say, I'm turning him loose if you don't take the bond, because that's not right. They take the bond. He gets out at 4, and 6 o'clock that night, he gets arrested again on 5 new charges, stealing your kid. Now, how you steal your kid when you've been up there every day for 3 weeks telling them, I got the kid? Second, I think they give him 3 or 4 counts of obstruction. And here's what's funny. The officers come get the kid, and he said, I'm not going to give you the kid because I think it would be illegal for me to put my kid back in harm's way in an abusive situation. But I'm not going to stand in your way. And right there's a kid. If you want to get him, you get him. But I do want to tell you that he's told y'all he's being abused. And I think y'all are breaking the law if you take him and put him back in that home. And guess what? Those officers, now this is what I understand. The officer said, you know what? We're going to go talk to our supervisors and we'll be back here in a little bit. Now, that's not obstruction. That's advising. It's not obstruction. He said right there he is if you want it. Now, all of that's supposed to be on body cam. So how in the world can you hold a guy on $1 million bond on that information right there? And you had to stay late because guess what? He was turned out at 4 o'clock. So you know what? You're staying pretty late to get all this done to get him arrested by 6 o'clock. And so they went out there on soccer field and arrested him in front of everybody. And so again, when we came back, the next day that was on a Thursday, the 28th of August. The next day we come back in trying to find, I want to see the probable cause. I want to see the information that was filed with the court to get his charges. Guess what? Wasn't there. And that's not uncommon. It may take a day or so to file all that. Should already, I say that if you issue a warrant, it should already be filed, but I have seen it to where they've done the paperwork and they ain't filed it, and judge goes ahead and issues a warrant, and then they go file all this. But if you issue a warrant, it should already be filed. Wasn't there. The next Monday was a holiday, Labor Day, if I remember. So Tuesday, we send a guy down there with the tape recording saying, we want to see this on Tuesday. And they come back and say, it's not filed. There's nothing filed. There's nothing in the file to say what was done here. And so that afternoon, then it all gets filed, but it gets file stamped for the 28th. Now, guess what? You can't do that. That's fraud. That's a lie. If I've got a tape showing it wasn't in the file by the 28th, on the September, how are you going to go back 4 or 5 days later and file stamp that for 4 or 5 days later, making it look like they actually did what they were supposed to do? So that's kind of corrupt stuff that we're talking about that these courts do. And Mark, this Butler case with this rape case, when national media come in and they were talking about, hey, how bad this is. And I said, hey, you just hit the tip of the iceberg. Y'all just getting started. You're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. And oh, JJ, what else would you have? And I said, hey, go look at this Seth Swain, I think is his name. Anyway, school teacher, got accused of, I think, oral sodomy. That didn't get they didn't end up convicting him on that. I think they convicted him on like trading sexual pictures or something like that. I think he gets 8 months in county jail, gets out, and then has sex with the 16-year-old. All of this very well documented. And then he violates 11 protective orders against this 16-year-old. Now, how do you violate 11? You're on probation for a sexual crime. You commit another sexual crime. Why are you even walking around? They should easily revoking your probation. They don't have to wait till you get convicted. They can go in there and prove you continue to do the same crime, revoke you, you're in prison. Second, if you have committed another crime and we tell you to stay away from the victim and you continue to harass the victim, then number one, why are we allowing you to stay out? But again, my mind is, I call that intimidation of a witness. That's another felony crime. And every time you do it, I'm going to file another felony crime on you. And then I'm going to go in at some time and say, Your Honor, you need to not even put a bond on this individual. Or if you're going to put $1 million bond, hell, how about this one? This one might deserve $1 million bond. How about that? But nope. Just let him get out. Let him continue to harass. And I think he's in jail now on a DUI issue. I told him about another one. The assistant district attorney here in 2022 gets charged with having 150 videos of child pornography, is my understanding. And guess what? He's still pending. It looks like they're trying to cover that up, trying to sneak it off, but it's still pending. How can you have, I don't know about you, Mark, but if I'm the district attorney and one of my assistant district attorneys gets caught with 150 hours, 150 videos of child pornography, guess who just went on my top list to be convicted immediately? We're not going to wait a whole lot of time. I'm probably going to go in there and make that go away. I'm going to go in there and say, you make me take you to trial, you'll spend your life in prison. If you want to plead out to a reasonable charge, which would have been quite a bit of time, he'd have went to prison. But you know what? I'd offer him something where, hey, we can make this get done, be done. Still pending. Here it is, 25, fixing to be 26. And you got, so almost 3 to 4 years that you're looking at, that we got a guy that has 150 videos and nothing happening. He's still out, nothing happening. And again, we can go on. We've got a rape case that just come out the other day. I wasn't talking about it because I told the family I wasn't going to talk about it, but it came out in the media the other day, so now I am talking about it. But we're going to see several cases that come out as one case, but there's several other victims in this case, and we see a person there with the college raping, or he doesn't work for the college, but it's my understanding it was at the college that this happened on the dorm room, and this rape occurs, and it's over a year old, if I'm not mistaken, and we've seen nothing, absolutely nothing done. People have to go hire attorneys to get something to get done. When did the victims start having to hire attorneys to get their case heard? And Mark, there's going to be another rape where they've said on it similar to that. So we've got all these rape cases that they are sweeping under the rug, hiding, doing nothing with, multiple victims. And again, that's just the rape cases we're talking about. We got these cases like Darrell's case where kids are being molested. We had a situation while all this is going on. And I'm just trying to give people a kind of idea of why do we need this and why Payne County? And so this grandma had her granddaughter dropped off, and she looked at the granddaughter and said, hey, takes the granddaughter to the doctor. The doctor suspects abuse, takes the kid to, I think Edmond, I'd have to go back and look, but takes them to another county to be looked at. They established that substantiated sexual abuse. DHS stepped in and got this kid. Now, I want to say this. If people listen to me, they think that I'm opposed to DHS. We need DHS. We need these, there's bad things going on out there, and we need an agency to help protect our children, protect adult services, all of these kind of things. But we don't need we don't need them putting them in abusive houses and allowing them to stay in abusive houses and going arresting people who are trying to protect kids. So that's what we need. We need an agency that works right. So here's a case where they did step in and work right. The person that's abusing the child shows up, wants the child back. Grandma says, no, the kid's in, state custody. That guy goes down there and talks to the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department goes talks to the DA. DA issues a writ, is my understanding. DA issues a writ to say, bring the kid back. Grandma's like, can't bring the kid back. The state's got him. At that point, they ought to be contacting the state. They ought to be contacting the state to get charges filed. And anyways, they end up issuing a warrant for grandma and arrest grandma. So these are the kind of things that we're talking about happening. And that's just kind of the top ones that we're naming. There's all kinds of cases there that we hope to bring attention to.
JJ, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to keep my mouth up because it's on the floor with you describing these awful cases, this awful abuse when you're describing this 17-year-old, potentially facing 78 years, and it goes down to 150 hours of community service. Yes, we have this kind of ridiculousness at times, definitely over here. Why has there been a history for a long time in this particular county that you're talking about of turning a blind eye to this, or this kind of malfeasance that you were looking at? Has there been this kind of culture for a long period of time, 10, 20, 30 years or whatever? I mean, what's your comment on that?
Well, Oklahoma is known as a conservative state. In the last presidential election, it's my understanding every county voted red, voted conservative. Mm-hmm. We've got a history of being a little outlawish, you know what I'm saying? So especially if you look at where I come from, southeastern Oklahoma is kind of known as outlaw territory, and we kind of think of ourselves as, hey, boy, if you were going to see some kind of shady stuff done, you think southeastern Oklahoma's a place that's probably going to happen. I'm going to tell you something. I've been in law enforcement 35 years. I know there's some things I could go back and tell you some big things, big cases where corruption occurred. But all in all, I've always worked well, and I can name you the judges that I work with right now that I'm very proud to know, and I tell you, hold in high esteem. There's a judge down in Durant, and I've got another couple of judges there in Toka County. Hold in high esteem. One over at Antlers that I hold really high esteem. But you know what? I get up here in these counties where you think, this is more, central and this is more urban, and they're going to have a bigger court and they're going to run better. I'm going to tell you something. I am shocked at how corrupt, and I'm not even touching. Here's the thing. A lot of people levy that I don't, I make a lot of accusations without evidence. I promise you, anything I'm talking about today, we have the massive evidence. You know what I'm saying? I mean, go check out Butler's case. That's right there in the court. Go check out this other case I'm talking about right there in the court. Seth Swain's case right there in the court. You don't have to take my word for it. All of that's court documented. Everything I'm talking about. The case on the waterboarding, again, it's made New York Times has put that. Shocks me. None of the reporters here in Oklahoma None of the news stations pick it up. I mean, that's probably one of the bigger news items probably in the nation. I don't see how people aren't picking up on that.
Well, maybe JJ, maybe that's something that needs to be looked at. Why isn't the media locally there, locally to you within the state? I think you're very, very grateful for the way the things have been reported in the Oklahoma Post. I think
Oh, absolutely, and I will tell you, I've been treated really well by the Oklahoma media. I think they've given me a fair shake on most stuff, but I do believe that the politics do influence our media, and I do believe that how else. I mean, you're talking about what ought to be the top story here in Oklahoma, and nobody's even reported it. Nobody hardly knows it. The juvenile detention with the molestation, with them knowing it in advance, that ought to be another big story. The Butler case, guess what? That's not got a lot of attention here in Oklahoma. So what's going on in Oklahoma that the news stations are refusing to report on these things? The grand jury with the people that we've named on it ought to be the biggest story going on in Oklahoma. To my knowledge, I don't even know if anybody's even reported on that much. Oklahoma Post is making these reports, which I appreciate and have done an awesome good job. But it's just a head scratcher is what's actually going on in this political. Is there that much political influence that they can influence the media? I think so. I've got a bunch of stuff going on in the Department of Corrections, and I can tell you they don't even want to report on those. So again, I do believe that we're seeing a political influence over that. Now that's just, and I'm very clear when I suspect something. If I say that we have this or we have this, I've got evidence. If I don't have evidence, then I say, hey, this is what I think, this is what I suspect, and I would say I don't have any evidence to show that, but I do have enough common sense to know, guess what? If I was a reporter, I'd be all over everything that I'm talking about, and none of them want to report this. And so again, it's pretty troubling as to what's going on. Mark, now we're going to have, we're fixing to, like I say, drop the bomb right there. So Monday is going to be a big day, and I hope people who are listening, if you're listening and you're here in Oklahoma and you want to be a part of this, so somewhere around 12:30, we're going to have a big rally back on. We've already had one rally there at the courthouse in Payne County.
You're talking Monday, the 8th of December, aren't you?
Yes. So this coming Monday, we're going to have a huge rally. We hope it to be huge. We're going to have a rally, and we'd love for you to show up. I'd love for have a big show to send a message of not only to that courthouse, but to every courthouse across the state and to the Capitol building that, hey, people are sick of this. It's time that they follow their own law. It's time that they do what's right. And it's time so people get exposed for what they've been doing. And so, again, we're going to file a new grand jury petition because we've been told that ours is going to be kicked out by the 8th. And so on the 8th, guess what? We're going to file another grand jury petition. We're going to include everybody on this one. I mean, we're going to include the whole who's who in Oklahoma state government is going to get put on this. And again, I want to tell people that may or may not, that just because you get put on a grand jury, I've been put on a grand jury. I've been looked at in a grand jury, walked right out of it, never got charged. Just because your name's on a grand jury don't mean a whole lot. But here's the thing is did you do something or did you not do something? In these cases, it's not what they did, it's what they didn't do. Do they have a duty when they get a 350-page report on kids being molested in a detention center? Do they have a duty to act? If they have a report of kids being possibly waterboarded with pictures of them being stomped or hit, black eyes and all that, do they have a duty to act? If we present a 2-hour video of all of these things and much, much more with cases of people having their kids taken, the DAs abusing their positions by filing kidnapping charges, or the same thing that's been done to Darrell. We have 2 or 3 cases similar to that where DAs abuse their positions, judges abuse their positions. And again, we see these kind of things. And then, probably 2 weeks ago, one of the cases that I've worked really, really hard on here in Oklahoma, probably one of the most high-profile cases there are, is a case called the Woolley case. And I'd gotten that file over 2 years ago and had studied it. I think they sanitized it. There wasn't nothing in there. Then they came back and made false allegations on these that I was able to prove 1,000%. You talk about slander. They slandered these people like you wouldn't believe, and took their kid without a hearing, and have never given their kid back 7 years, and without any due process, without any type of hearing. And again, it's illegal. It's kidnapping. It's wrong. So I had that file. I returned it back to them. And now I think there's a little investigation going on. I think that's why this has come up. But 2 weeks ago, they tried to file on me, or didn't file, they filed an ethics complaint. So this is what the government does. They file an ethics complaint on me saying I won't give back the file. Now, this has been over 2 years ago, and I won't give back this file. And so they come in going to investigate me. If I'm found guilty, I think it was a $25,000 fine. Pretty steep hit right there. But here's what's funny. I was able to produce a email where I said, hey, would y'all please come pick up this file, and I'd like to talk to you about it when you come pick it up. Hey, thank you for your prompt pickup of this file. And they sent back welcome. So we kind of ended that discussion. But here's the deal. High-profile case, probably the highest profile case in the state. And they just sent over that I've got it, which tells you they either don't know where it's at, or now because they're being looked at, they either destroyed it, hid it, and now are trying to frame me. I would go with that one, I think. But either way, they're incompetent, and they don't have this high-profile file, and they're going after me for mishandling stuff. Now are we going to go back after them? What do you want to bet, Mark, that JJ, let it go? That's no big deal. And I'm not going to let it go because, again, they went after me. I'm going right back at them. And, again, that's what they're trying to do, is intimidate. They're trying to make you where you're scared to go out, just like Darrell. I mean, hey, Darrell's out $75,000 trying to defend himself. That'll make a guy have to think about twice. Do I want to go out there and sign on another grand jury petition? And in fact, he probably won't be one of the leaders on this time, because guess what? I don't blame him. I mean, he's still got to go to court and prove he didn't do it, and he's paying lawyers $7,500 on some of the most bogus that this judge knows fraudulent. And again, I can prove that. I'm not just talking outside of my mouth. I can prove that,
JJ, sorry to interrupt, because we're really coming up against the hour, and thank you so much. So could you, I think, just remind people there's an event on Monday the 8th. What time do you, because I will get this interview out before then, but what time do you need people to be there? I think you will encourage, I'll say it on your behalf, we want people to bring their phones, phone the event, to film the event, to record what's being said. So where are people to meet at what time?
So if you want to be part of this, we're going to meet at 12:30 on the 8th. They're at the courthouse in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And again, you don't have to be just from Stillwater. If you want to come up from another place to, guys, what this is going to do, we're planting the flag right here. This is where the fight starts. This is definitely not going to be the end of the fight, because if we can show it going on here and we can expose it here, then we can go after it. And guys, it's happening all over the state, many pockets over the state, the same places mainly, but Garfield County needs a look. Wagner County needs a look. Tulsa, Oklahoma County. I've got stuff from Grady County, Pottawatomie County, Lincoln County are some of your main ones, but I can name just about every county. We need to have a multi-county grand jury is what we hope this results in.
Brilliant. And the other thing, I want to give a shout out to an important website which involves dear friends of ours and their case in regard to where is JonahRief.com. So where is Jonah Rief, RIEF.com. Please go to that website, find out details of that appalling child trafficking, kidnapping case, and look that up and then spread the word on that, because that is involving two dear friends of ours. So JJ, I'm going to play us out. I'll say goodbye to you officially on the other side. Thank you so much for joining me, and please, everyone go and be with JJ on this event on Monday. And JJ, I'd like you to come back and then discuss how that event went. We encourage everyone to film it, and let's get the publicity of that out. So JJ, thank you so much, and I look forward to buying my own 10-gallon hat, and then I can feel as though I can officially then interview you.
I'll get you a hat and a t-shirt, Bigfoot t-shirt.
Amen. That'd be brilliant. All right, stay there, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. We're asking for action, be at this event, but start paying attention to what is going on in your county, what is going on in your country, and around the world. Thank you so much.